Yeah, we're still a little bit like in front of the time, but that's fine.
Okay. I asked my partner not to walk in, so if he does, I'll just tell him to come over and say hi.
All right, we're live. Well, welcome, Tim. This is Tim Taylor. Tim is the Courage Coach, based out of London, Ontario. And little known fact, I know maybe people don't know this about me, but my family on my mother's side are all from Hamilton. So I'd say I'm Canadian. Technically, I'm Canadian in the sense that my mother is Canadian. She's full-blooded. So glad to be here with you today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Kevin. And you can just be an honorary Canadian in my book.
So in terms of like just getting started, I'm curious. I mean, I want to make this very conversational because you and I have already had like a couple of discussions, right? And one of the big things we were talking about was just, being a gay male professional and what that meant for you, what that has meant for you. And then obviously, like, what are some of those differences that you and I have talked about? But it'd be great if just share a little bit about like your history, kind of, where you started your career and how you ended up as a coach.
Okay, sure. I'd love to share some facts like that. It's interesting when I take a look at the evolution of where I was and where I am today. It's almost like two different people. I I graduated from college and got my certified accounting designation in late 80s, early 90s, and directly went into a manufacturing facility. At that time, I didn't know my identity, really. I really didn't know. I was struggling to accept a lot of things in my life. My mom had passed away several years earlier, which prompted me to go back to school and thus fulfill some of my dreams, which was to get an accounting designation, which I was in the process of doing when I got this manufacturing job. But I'll tell you a quick little story about that. And here's how fear holds you back from things. And after I tell the story, you'll start to get an understanding that my experiences are all about courage, all about that ability to get past that fear and to continue on. So, every day when I got the job, I had the interview, everything went fine, and I was nervous as heck. I didn't have a car at the time, so I was taking the bus. And I would, on my way to work,
Hold on.
take out this earring like this, right?
Yeah.
Get in my pocket. Okay, so I flip it up like that and I put it in my pocket. And then every day after I left work, take it out of my pocket. And as I'm going back to the bus stop, I'd flip it back in again. And I did that for 3 years.
Wow.
3 years. So finally,
And can I just quickly, what was it in that moment, right, when you were doing that? Why for yourself were you deciding like to take it out to, what was the reason or the rationale that you had at that time?
oh, many things, Kevin, many things went through my mind. First of all, I was working in a manufacturing facility. So, some of the times when I went on the shop floor and you see those guys and they were tested in this and that, even though I liked them and everything else, I just didn't feel like I fit in with them. So I was trying to fit in. I wasn't quite comfortable being out yet. Now, through that 3 year journey, I had met I confided in some coworkers, and that was fine. But I was a very private person, and to this day, I'm still fairly private. I believe that my work ethic and my who I am speaks for itself. I don't need to be out and proud or anything like that. But eventually, I started to understand that I wasn't being who I was meant to be.
Mhm.
So that was a difficult thing for me because I always felt at work that I was just hiding a little bit. For example, going to Christmas dinners, okay, and
Mhm.
not taking my partner.
Oh,
Today,
wow.
we're still together. We've been together for over 30 years, and I didn't
Congratulations.
take him. Thank you very much. I didn't take him to a Christmas function. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like we were allowed to be there, so to speak. And again, that was the early 90s, mid 90s, and I was there for 11 years. So that really shook me as far as why am I doing this? Because I was pretty much out everywhere else,
Mhm.
but not work. Right? Work was separate. Work was work, and sports, and I'm a sporty guy. I used to play baseball and bowling and basketball and golf and things like that. So I didn't really have a problem. Um, I left that company. I won't get into that one. That one's a long story for another day. Maybe we can have another. That would be a good story. But each progressive time that I started a new position or whatever, I was more and more comfortable. For example, I never took the earring out ever again. Once I
Mm.
had decided that, I never took it out. So fast forward a few years, I through that manufacturing facility, I started working with a software product, and subsequently found other positions with that product in the finance area. Then I had a major life event in 2007. I had this tumor growing in my maximus sinus, and I was given the opportunity to decide to move to Toronto to work or not. And at that time, we just weren't prepared to move to Toronto. We're 2 hours away, so right, close to Hamilton, but far enough.
Mhm.
And right before I left, and it was a mutually agreed decision. I was working for a gold mine company at the time. I was having this tremendous pain, like excruciating pain throughout the day. I'd have to take pills. And I just thought, silly me, I just thought it was my sinusitis acting up. Well, eventually what happened was I went to my doctors. My doctor took a picture of my face. This was completely blocked. I went to an ENT, ears, nose, and throat, and they determined that I had this growing in my maximus sinus. Well, it was actually 4.5 inches long.
Wow.
I subsequently had the surgery, and I realized during that time, because I had a couple of misdiagnoses, my doctor and the ENT weren't on the same wavelength, and the C word came up, right? And that just freaked me out because both of my parents had died of cancer and things like that. So I went ahead with the surgery, and he cleared me all up. And I realized that life was too short and that I was never going to not be who I truly was, ever.
Mm.
And I went on I started doing consulting for this software. And for the longest time, everything was fine, except there was a lot of travel involved and many nights at home and things like that. So I started this path. You asked me about, well, I started this path of self-discovery, really, for the last 15 years. And it wasn't until I truly found or started searching for a coaching program, and I found IPEC, which was a perfect alignment with my values and how I saw my progression go.
Mhm.
I understood that this is where I truly was meant to be, and really have have not looked back since then, really.
And when you like coaching, so you've been doing coaching then for how long now? Like how long have you been practicing as a coach?
Well,
I mean, you mentioned sports, so I think you've been doing coaching as related to sports as well. But coaching in terms of like a life and leadership coach, how long have you been practicing?
well, it's
Um,
yeah, interesting that you answered that or asked me that question, Kevin, because when I look back and reflect on things, I've been 20 years.
Wow.
I just didn't call it that, right? People would come up to me. People come up to me. They still come up to me. I used to say, people come to me and tell me stuff, right? And we talk and we nurture. And that was one of the leading indicators of why I actually finally pulled the plug and said, hey, let's look into this. I'll tell you a quick story about that. I was in Florida and I was facilitating a yoga class on Sunday mornings at the gym I go to. And this woman comes up to me after the class, and she was, I have to say, was an irritant to me because she was always late. Every single class of mine, started at 9 a.m. and she would always be late. And this particular day, she came up to me after class and she just got right in my face and she was like really upset and everything like that. So I took 75 minutes of my time after class. And I sat down and talked to her, and I know some breathing techniques, and I walked her through some calming things, and we just talked and everything. And at the end, she said, "Are you a life coach?" I went,
And you were like,
"No, I'm not." She said, "Well, you should be. You're amazing."
oh, wow.
So that was the actual trigger. But prior to that, I had had those experiences, like I said, for the last 20 years. I just never equated it to, with IPEC and getting the professional training and everything like that, I started on a different journey. And, a little scary, have to say, I started the journey training-wise when I was in my 50s. So that was another thing to be aware of. It wasn't a really major fear because I had, changed positions and moved in my life after that. But it was still something to be aware of.
Yeah. What's interesting too is I want to get into a little bit about, obviously your courage for you is just the centerpiece of your coaching practice. And it's also, I think, something that's very central to you, obviously, as an individual, in terms of your life and, what the things that you have experienced and overcome over time. And so, but there's also a dynamic for me too, where when you talk about courage, specifically among gay men, I think it's an interesting topic. I think, so my first question might be, because I find that the whole idea of courage too to be an interesting topic, is where would you say, like, it's easy when someone says, right, like, oh, you need to like, be courageous, but how, like, what was something in your life, or where do you think courage really comes from, right? Like being able to step into it. That's the piece that for me, I think is the most interesting. Is a lot of people are really, they come to the very edge of their what would be something that they fear, right? Which would allow them to build courage. But why is it that so many people don't take that step into whatever it is that they're fearing, to be courageous? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's interesting that you share that because, ever since I've met you, you and I have aligned so much in a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm.
One of my webinars that we went together with, mine was called "The Courage to Be: Steps to Possibility," and it talked about that very thing where I visioned this precipice and we're overlooking it like this, and everybody gets there at some point in time in their life.
Absolutely.
Maybe they get there multiple times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just can't do it. They can't take that one step.
And I know it's different for everyone, but for you, what is it, maybe even about your personal experience, that has allowed you, that you somehow were able to step into it?
Oh, that's a pretty big question. For many years, I didn't like myself. I was tortured with being different. I was tortured with this.
Can you move a little bit forward? It's that the sound is just it's still a little distant. So I want to make sure people are hearing this, if
Sorry,
they're seeing this.
yeah, I lowered my voice as well. I was kind of thinking as I was doing it. I was tortured and I didn't like myself.
Mm,
I wasn't accepting of being gay. I was from a small town. Um, I didn't know anybody else.
mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't have the courage to accept myself right
Wow.
away. I didn't have the courage to say something to that bully when he called me derogatory names. Um, and I, I think that beat me down for a while. So I hid it. I hid it.
Absolutely. I mean, funny, I think we all do it. I mean, I can say personally for me, it was a whole process, as it is, I think, a journey for a lot of, especially, I mean, doesn't matter if you're gay, lesbian, trans, I mean, whatever, wherever you are within the spectrum in the community, the process of loving yourself, like you just mentioned, I think is it's so uniquely personal, first off, but second of all, it's it's something that it takes time, like you said, to step into really embracing everything about you, including obviously who you are. And you just mentioned that for you that was hard. I mean, and it's totally, I think, normal that that's how there's so many people that feel that way.
Yeah. Well, and again, remember that was the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
I was from a small town in Ontario, Canada, less than 30,000. Um, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was confused. And you hear derogatory comments, and when you're in that situation and whatever, um, it, it just didn't build me up, right? It did more
Absolutely.
knock me down and things like that. And so when I went into high school, eh, I mean, I was still an athlete, so I did five sports when I was in high school. So volleyball, basketball, track and field, and then I did bowling and baseball outside of school. So I was active and sporty, but I didn't feel me.
Mm,
There was a part missing. And at that time, looking back, I didn't really know. I didn't, right? I didn't know that. Then as I started understanding, I kind of, we call it, used to say hiding in the closet, right? Or stepping out of the closet, right?
exactly. Coming out of, right, the closet. Exactly.
Right, and there was so much fear around that. And I
Wow.
think it was more to do, when I'm analyzing myself now, it was more to do with the fear of accepting myself and the
Mhm.
shame that I felt at that time vis-a-vis, and there still was part of this, was feeling accepted for who I am.
And what do you think? Was there a moment or was there something that made a person, something that you like that helped you in that process of, like you said, learning? Because again, it takes time. It's not something that just happens overnight. I mean, I've been there myself. Granted, we came from two very different places in terms of
Yeah,
I was supported by people who, I was out to that knew me, but still was a process to learn to love fully myself. I mean, like you said, even though you have that support, was there something specifically for you, like a friend, maybe a family member, something that really that helped you along that path, or helped you gain more, like you said, that you started to learn to love yourself more?
yeah. So I went back to school um, when I was 23. So I was out of school, but I dropped out. I dropped out of, at that time, it was grade 13. I dropped out. I started drinking, partying. I was running away. And there was a lot of
Mm,
turmoil in my life. So that part, there were some friends back then that knew a little bit about, but it wasn't until I actually moved to the current city that I live in that um, I started at least feeling a little bit more comfortable with myself because I started meeting other people. You know, we would go to play baseball, and there was a gay baseball league, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you just, I don't, I'm not defined by being gay, but being gay is part of who I am. So
Absolutely.
it
We
allows
share
me,
very similar philosophies. Like it's not all I am. And I don't even live my life that way in terms of spending my time doing, what would be, I guess, more probably stereotypical gay things day to day. I have my life and I share my life with my husband, similar to you. And so it's, it's not something that's front and center, but what I think is great is that not a lot of people have are having these conversations. That deep understanding of coming to terms with who you are, and that is such certainly a part of coaching, right? It's a part of our coaching is allowing people to explore who they really are, and hopefully getting in touch with their authentic self. Because it's interesting when you were talking, what came up for me was, for me, I even started reflecting on my experience, like when I was younger and coming out as well. Like there's there's a notion that, right, by not being fully connected to like who you really are, you're not able to give that to other people that are coming into your life. And there's a it's, I mean, it's like not cause and effect, but there certainly is an effect in terms of the types of people that are coming into your life, right? It's
uh,
it's an interesting thing when you start to break down, like, what are you really receiving in your life by not allowing yourself to fully, like you said, accept who you are and be who you are. Because you're actually, it's kind of the opposite, right? You're denying those things. You're denying yourself first, those things, but then you're denying your life, those beautiful things that could come into your life.
well, and you said it, this authentic me was never there when I was working for many years, right? So I always felt that. I always felt like I was hiding something, and that I
Mm,
would be found out, and there would be some kind of penalty or something. And you know, whether that was true or not, I never knew, but I was always thinking that. So I feel exactly what you're saying, because I did feel that I wasn't being truly honorable to myself, and therefore, I couldn't, like, I never introduced my partner to my siblings for 4 or 5 years.
wow.
So we were in a relationship for 4 or 5 years before I even let them in to my world. And it's funny. My younger brother, he's 10 years my junior. He like rolls his eyes, right, and goes, "Oh my God!" And then he goes, "Oh, you're having a party? Can I come on over?" Like, I was having a really serious conversation. He goes, like, "Hello, how
Right,
are you?"
like the words, but the cat's out of the, like, everyone has known this, but that's another whole interesting dynamic, right? Is
Right,
what we built up in our own head, right?
exactly.
It's oh my gosh, like, no one knows. They can't know. If they know, they're going to think. And it really, it's funny, right? It's the coaching piece of it, that you have all these beliefs in your head about what you think it is, and then it happens, and you're like, wait a minute, like, this was not this is not what I was thinking in my head that was going to actually happen. You're just saying, like, it doesn't matter. What are you talking about? Of course it matters. And so it's that dynamic, I think, is interesting as well, right? That
Yeah.
we tend to make things probably bigger than what they truly or actually will be once the experience happens.
Well,
That it's the exact opposite. Yeah, it's
it,
something so different.
right. Well, and that's what my clients go through, right? This whole idea, this whole thing about courage, and I think that's where the concept for me was born, was because all these things kept on happening to me, and when I look back on it, and I said, yeah, it took me a while, but I was able to take that step. I was able to take that step, and look at me today, right?
And
It's
what
my
was it?
journey.
And what was it that you, in your mind, you were like, I have to take this step? Like, what was it that for you was so important for you to be able to take this step?
I think I think it wasn't, Kevin, let me rephrase it a little bit, the conceptual part about it. I think it wasn't really what I had to do, it's what I chose to do.
Yes.
And I
Okay.
chose not to get limited by fear anymore. And for example, here's an example. Several years ago, I volunteered for a private golf club, and I was doing a starter position.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I don't go out and go, I'm Tim Taylor, I'm the gay boy, right? It's just not who I am. But if conversation came through and somebody goes, are you married or whatever, I'll say, I'm in a relationship and we've been together 30 years, right? And then if they pursue it, then I'll say, yes, and my partner, Renato, blah, 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 right? So there's that change in whole dynamic that I'm comfortable now. I'm allowing you your space
Mm-hmm.
to determine whether you're comfortable with that. And if you choose not to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. Whereas before,
Mm.
back to that, your thought about that, before I was always looking to please.
Oh, that's
I would look
that,
at Kevin, I have to please you. I have to please you. I have to please you. And at the detriment of me. Like it was always not
absolutely.
about me.
I can say that I can so relate with what you just said because that fueled for a period of my life after, coming out and even in like work, my professional life, everything, it was about trying to please and get the validation, external validation
Yep,
from someone else versus looking at myself and getting it, like believing it wholly and recognizing that I'm like, I don't need your validation. Like you said, right? Fortunately, I'm in a space now where similar to you, if it comes up and someone asks me, are you married? Yes. Oh, where is she? If it's like, where is she? Well, it's actually he is. And then to your point, I just let it unfold as it should. And if that somehow brings up something for you, well, it's on you. It's not on me. So, but I'm here to have an engaging conversation. If you would like to, to have a respectful, engaging, conversation. But it's interesting how, like you were saying, this idea that I think it's not just specific to, I think, the gay community, but I do think that it's a byproduct of a lot of times of not having that self-love and acceptance, is that you are looking outside to get that. And so it feeds itself, right? You're constantly having to feed that validation versus sitting in, I guess, a certain state of just overall comfort and joy and peace, and knowing that this is who I am. And that's it. I'm proud of that, and not needing all that, because I mean that we could go on for hours. I just think of like Instagram now and certain aspects of, especially the gay male community, that for me, it doesn't resonate with me because a lot of it is very much, I know I don't want to sound judgy either. I guess I'm trying, because I respect people's choices to do whatever they want. But for me, it wouldn't be something that aligns, I guess, with my values. That's probably where it is. It's something that, based on my personal values, I play within that. I play within that part of knowing who I am versus playing the game, I guess, might be a way to, like to play the game, and to play the game in a way that I feel it's necessary to do, I don't know, like to do certain things to seek the attention versus looking inward for myself for what I need.
Right. And as you were saying it, I was already thinking it, the judgment. The
Yes.
judgment was such a big thing, both internal and external, both professionally and personally, that when I finally realized that this wasn't serving me and these things were truly holding me back, I talk to people, and I describe myself as a career coach, and I help people break free from those restraints that hold them back, that fear, And everybody has them. It's just that ability to be able to say, why is this holding me back? You know, and I talk to people about having a little Timmy right here
Mm.
on my shoulder. And he whispers those safe little words into my ears, and he keeps me safe, and he keeps me comforted. And now I know that I can just go buzz off. I got this. I'm strong enough, right? And and really, it's funny. I'm even going even more, right?
It
So
kind of fuel. Do you notice that it fuels itself? Like the more you step into what you're the most afraid of, the more it almost becomes not a, it's not a motivator. It's just that it kind of provides that energy and that lift to keep, like, you want to do it again because it's kind of exhilarating. In a way, it can be in a very deeply personal level exhilarating to like step into it and to keep it fuels itself in a way.
yeah, and it's not an arrogance thing at all.
Yes.
It's a developmental, it's a growth thing, you know, and it's almost like a superpower.
Mm.
You know, I liken it to a superpower where you think, oh, wow, I just got a jolt there. I'll give you a quick example at the golf course. You know, people will come up to me and they've known me now for several years, and some of the members will get personal now. They just start talking to me as a person instead of
Mm-hmm.
the whoever. Um, and we'll talk. And this one person in particular that it comes up for me, you know, he asked me if I wanted to go play golf in a golf course nearby, and I said sure. So we spent the day together, and I asked him a profound question, and I said to him, "Why are we friends?" And he went,
What do you mean?
"Right, exactly." He was floored. You know, this is a married man and everything else. And I said, "Well, you know, I believe in the universe. I believe in energy attracts like energy. I believe that you're in my life for a reason, and you're giving. I learned from you and all these things. I went through it all, right?" I said, "But why are we friends?" I said, "Do you realize that all the things that had to happen in the universe to do that, right?" You know what he said to me right away, right off? And it wasn't a condescending thing or anything. It was filled with curiosity. He goes, because we got on the topic of me being gay, and he already knew that, but he goes, "I've never known anybody
Mm.
gay." And I said, "Oh, so I'm your token gay boy?" You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
no,
right.
no,
You're
no,
thinking,
no, no. He goes, I guess I had this opinion.
mm.
So in essence, what he was doing was having the courage to explore things that he didn't know, that he didn't understand. And I commend him on that.
And I think everyone, like you said, what's interesting when you say that is it was also because there was a sense of already like a trust that he had with you. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, because you said you had known each other, but that you created that space
Right.
that also allowed him to be able to feel comfortable and even I say confident with him with his own self because um that's where I think it comes from too. Like if you know, just being confident and saying, "No, I've never known anyone who's gay," but you know, obviously that he was able to even see for himself. He was able to see past that for himself because of who you are. That's what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That
I think what I'm hearing you say is that there was, first of all, there was no sexual part to it.
correct. It was more about a relationship, and that he really appreciated and valued your thoughts, your ideas, who you are. I mean, probably I'm guessing you play golf pretty good, or you know, or you enjoy golf. So it's you said you played it before. So yeah, it's almost because I this brings up an interesting idea for me too around you know, like you said, everyone comes in and out of each other's lives for a reason in terms of maybe teaching us something or having that symbiotic I'm teaching you, right, and I'm also learning in the process. So being teacher and student, and the idea that many people, like you said, that you touch in your life, um it's really because of who you are, the energy you bring, and that somehow attracts that type of a person. And so here, I look at it like building bridges. Like that's when you were saying that, I'm like, it's not even like a bridge needed to be built. It's just that this relationship organically took place because of who you are,
Right.
and this gentleman's ability to allow himself that space for himself to be, to enjoy his time with you.
Right. And not look at it purely as a, I think in society, we do that all over the place, not just with the gay folks, but, in anything. And then all of a sudden you go back to, well, why doesn't that person who's been in a position for many years look for that, want to go and apply, even though they want to, they don't apply for that new position. They get held back. There's no courage there. They don't have so it's I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or whatever. And I think now looking back at it, I've evolved so much that I'm okay with who I am right now, because I know that I constantly learn, I constantly grow, and I get a lot of my growth through the people with whom I have contact with. Because
Absolutely.
I know it's okay to say, I met that person, but I just didn't resonate with them. And leave it at that. There's no judging, there's no cussing, there's no.
Absolutely. It's what it's meant to be in a way, right? It is what is versus you trying to go to a place, well, why didn't they like me, right? Or the other way around of, God, I so badly, I mean, so many people, like you said, don't recognize perhaps, or don't, maybe they get stuck in that thinking of, why won't so-and-so like me? Or why is it that so-and-so isn't, they're good friends with this other person, but they're not good friends with me. And there's all this judgment that goes with that too, about not only yourself, but the relationship. And if you're allowed to just let it be and understand that, what, if our paths cross, it was meant to be. And if our paths don't cross, it was meant to be, right? Both ways. It doesn't.
Both ways was meant to be. And
right.
Take that, Kevin, right into the business world. And, when you have that courage, when you have the ability to feel good about where you're at in your life, there's a difference between not being proficient in a position, but being proficient and knowing that versus not being in proficient, like your skill set you're missing or something like that. Okay, well, you still have the ability to go correct that. But so many people get held back by what happens if I fail? What happens if they don't like my answer? What happens if, they laugh at me for suggesting something, And so there's this whole subculture, if you will, that's so, for me, I believe it's just so available and so abundant to help. And that's one of the greatest satisfactions that I get when dealing with my clients is watching them grow to the point that I provide them with an environment where they believe that they are safe and that they can seek and touch their vulnerable spots in the spots that maybe they closed that trap door on. And maybe they've run away from it and left it there. So it's still there. But I want them to say, it's okay. I can do this myself and lift it up and take a peek. They don't have to go deep diving.
Right. Right. I mean, they can choose to, right? They can choose either way. They can choose to just sort of touch it, see it, or whatever, or like you said, really go into it and explore it as whatever. I guess it's like you meet them where they are, right? That whole idea of you're meeting them where they are.
And knowing that they at least are having the courage to at least start. And that's
absolutely.
It's funny because they don't believe that. No, I didn't do much. But you absolutely did.
That's true. I think you're right. I see that as well sometimes with the clients that I currently have, and actually confidence always is a topic. It's a very unifying topic. And so, like you said, it really impacts everybody, because everybody at some point is going to be faced with something that they fear, which then brings up that idea of confidence. And the two are interrelated. And so for me, it's interesting when you hear people, because a lot of times they don't give themselves the credit, like you just said, that wow, you were able to just make this small step forward, which really, having seen it with other clients, is huge, right? It's this, it can be something that they maybe play down, or like, well, I really didn't do it, but to just do that is huge. It's a huge leap forward in the process, like you said, of exploring, right, what's holding you back, or what's prohibiting you from taking on and looking at something straight in the face that you have been fearful of, either your entire life, or that's something that you're trying to tackle in your life. And so, what would you say? What are some of the things that you've seen, like courage for you? Like what would be, because if someone's watching this now or on the replay as well, like what are some tools that you would recommend that you may have used, or that you've seen work well in terms of people being able to embrace that, like the idea of courage and build that courage?
Well, I think, several different things come to mind right away. First, just do it. See what happens. That's the very first thing. Just do it, see what happens. Learn from whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Riding a bike. So we equate external things, and we have the courage. Well, what happened? I also say revert back to your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
What happened then? Get on a skateboard, jump on a skateboard. You weren't afraid of falling off. If you fell off, what happened?
It's true. That's funny you should say that, because I've seen like skateboarders around here, like in South Florida, and I think about now where I'm at, and how I would have so much more fear doing it than, this is a great analogy, than when I used to skateboard when I was 13, 14 years old.
Right.
And I was doing, I'm telling you, Tim, crazy stuff. I mean, shit that if my mom knew I was doing it, she would have been like, you're gonna break your arm, and I didn't even care. There was nothing that I was bound by. Fear didn't even enter my mind. I was like, you just do it. You just do it and hope for the best,
Exactly. So that's another thing that I say to them is revert back to your childhood. What were the things there, right? Now, having said that, sometimes personal experiences way back when were the beginning of the trigger points to hold you back, right? So we have to be careful about how we introduce it or whatever. The other thing that I encourage people to do, and I'm not self-promoting myself or you, is speak to somebody.
Absolutely.
Talk to somebody, and whether it's a good friend, whether it's a professional, like us or whoever. You really, if they're really good at listening, that would be my next point, is be a really good listener. If they're really good at that, you feel safe. When you feel safe, you start to look at things and fear fades away. And maybe it's okay. You know what? I've been holding myself back from sending out some job applications, and because I always think, what's the worst that could happen? Right? Go for it.
I love that. And I mean, I think it's the idea, it's that what's hard, I think, and I've seen with some of my clients, to your point, is the same approach, right? Of it, the only way to get that courage, to your point, is by stepping into whatever you're afraid of. It really is the only, there's no way around it. There's there is the mental component, like you said, the mental component of understanding perhaps what are the thoughts that are coming up for you that are prohibiting you from doing whatever it is you want. But really the only way to do it is to take some action, how small it is or even how big it is, right? Because that's so personal to the individual. Is can make a world of difference, because every small step forward actually starts to build on itself and then allows someone to actually take a bigger step next time. And it's amazing how much, right, people we attach, we all do it. I mean, we do it as well. I've done it. It's where that you attach to what you think people, you're going to, what you're going to think about yourself. So the self-judging piece, but then more importantly, what are other people going to think? What's going to be the outcome? Am I going to look stupid? Am I going to look, and you know what? That's where, right? It doesn't matter, but getting to the point where you are confident with yourself to say, it doesn't matter, and really believe that, right? That to me where like, wow, there's beauty, there's real beauty and poetry there, because you're just not attached to the same things that most of us are defaulting to every day, which keeps us where we are. It keeps us in that safe, quote unquote, safe space. But that safe space really, it doesn't allow you sometimes to fully experience all these wonderful, beautiful, like, things that really you can experience if you want to, if you really want to. And so it's a choice.
Well, I think when you take a look at, I like to every so once in a while review my life, and I like to do it because it's a validation that I am where I'm at because that's where I was meant to be. That's number one thing. Because I could have went on a pity party way back when. I could have said, well, why did my mom die when I was so young? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why wasn't I 6'6"? Because I like to play basketball, I mean, all these things. But now I look at everything and go, everything that is there was meant to be so that I could be here today talking to you. And that gives me so much joy and satisfaction that I don't look back on anything as a regret, right?
Absolutely.
I don't anymore. I really don't. And that goes with all my jobs as well. And it will continue to go with all the abundance that comes my way through new clients, through new adventures that I do with my business, new collaborations. Everything for me now is about that growth, about learning. And it's not about failure, because to me, failure is not a word that I choose to use anymore. It's how did I grow?
Right. And it really is, again, failure is what you believe. It's a belief, right? People use it all the time, like, oh, he failed. But there's a way to look at that too. Like you said, that's full of possibility, which is learning versus failure, because it's not like it's more of, I tried. I mean, to me, the word trying is, I think, a very powerful, like, place to be. And it's powerful when people allow themselves to try. Like, just trying trying usually means people will associate with whether, I succeeded or you failed. But it's the process that you're going through where there's, like you said, an opportunity for learning, and to attach yourself to that versus thinking, oh my God, I failed, right? Constantly telling yourself that message.
Well, and it's normal. It's a normal behavior because our life, we've been taught that, right? All of our life.
Absolutely.
Especially when we go to school. How are we graded?
Yeah.
Pass or fail. Move
right.
on to the next grade.
You got an F. It was, you failed. You failed this test. So you're right. You have all these messages that we get that feed us into this idea, and that really do keep us a lot of people in our place, like in our comfort zone, and from not allowing ourselves to step out of that, to say, well, I want to try something new, so I'm going to try.
Right.
It's versus, I know I really want to do this.
and not
What?
having the judgment after that by trying. I love that analogy of try,
Yeah,
right?
because trying is so full of for me it's a positive word. I guess that's what when like it's a very positive word if someone says I tried because it shows intent, motivation, um, it, you know, the unknown. You if you usually are trying something, right, you're entering into a space perhaps of the unknown, and that's where a lot of that fear, like you said, lives, right? This idea of whether I'm going to fail or so. Um, one like it's almost 1:48, but so one question. Time just flies. One last question that I wanted to ask was, what might be someone out there right now? I mean, they could be gay or not gay, doesn't matter. Like, what would be one piece of advice that you would just share with them as the courage coach?
Good question. So whenever I think about that, I always look to my brother.
Mm,
I have a disabled brother. Um, he's left side paralysis.
mm,
So for 55, 57 years, he's been paralyzed with the left side.
oh,
And to me, he's the most courageous,
mm,
beautiful spirit in the world because I never hear him complain. I never hear him say, I can't. I never feel like he wants to come to me and say, why me? Okay.
wow,
Try. At least he'll try.
wow,
And let me tell you, when he plays games on the computer, he plays Wii, he goes out bowling. He has difficulty walking, so he gets scared. But when you approach it and frame it so that he looks at it as something exciting to do, that's within his reason to do, then he'll do it. So, for
wow,
example, he came to visit us in Florida for about a week and a half. He and his wife and my side of the family, and we have a swimming pool. So he's left side paralyzed. It's fairly limited functionality. So when he's in the pool and he's trying to float, he turns. So he gets really scared, right? And no, I can't do that, right? Because
right,
he's moving. But what we were able to do was provide a method for him so that he felt comfortable enough to try.
mm,
We couldn't get him out of the water.
wow,
Okay? So I think that's the analogy I'd like to share with everybody is that when you allow yourself, whatever it is, whether it's losing weight, whether it's looking at a new job, what's the worst that can happen? If you try and learn from it, I like that. But it's internally, you have to take a look and say to yourself, this is important to me. What's holding me back? Why is it holding me back? And what can I do to break free? And if I can do that personally, great. If I need help doing it, I seek the help.
absolutely,
Like maybe it's a technical thing. Maybe it's I don't have enough skills right now. I don't feel comfortable. Okay, what can I
mm-hmm.
do then? Okay, I go and get this certification or this accreditation. Great. You're trying. You're trying something new. You're believing in yourself. And that's the other part, belief.
I like that. So if people want to get in touch with you, I'm gonna add your Facebook business page to the comments on Facebook after we finish, so that people can obviously find you and get to you if they would want to.
Right.
And anything else that last minute thing that you would want to share? I mean,
Sure. Kevin, I'm really excited to announce that I'm going to be starting a podcast really soon. It's called
mm,
Courage Corner. And it is just like today, it's going to be an intimate, quiet, casual conversation with people, just regular, everyday folks. And we're going to sit down and talk about what courage means to them. But more importantly, sometimes it's about having the courage. So it's going to be a fun, interactive session. I'm just working on the fine details now, but that is coming soon. And once I have it all ready, I'd love to have you on my show.
I would be honored, and definitely can't wait to have future conversations. So I will also make sure that we, after like once you launch, share that with people as well, so that if they want to tune in and listen to the podcast, they're able to. So thank you very much.
Well, Kevin, it's been my pleasure, absolutely. And I can't wait to start your course.
10-day challenge.
I'm looking.
That's true. I was gonna talk to you afterwards to see if there's anyone else that you think that's close to you that might want to actually do it as well. So I was gonna reach out to you, but definitely. I'll talk to you afterwards. I'll give you.
Okay.
I'll text you
on that, and
yeah.
I look forward to it. And you know what? I loved being here. So if you ever want to have me on again, I'm going to toot my own horn. I just had so much fun here that thank you so much.
Sure. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.